Welcome back. It's another episode, another installment of the Bench Mob Podcast, your podcast for sports and pop culture talk from your everyday regular people that you could relate to. Me, Miles, I'm your host, Mr. Still Not Worried. Miles, left-handed smooth operator, Davenport. How you feeling today, man?
Feeling good. It's a Friday. Weekend's about to start. I wish the weather was still hot, but hey, I can only ask for so much.
Yeah, it's Jersey, man. You know how I go in Jersey. But it's Friday. A lot of music has dropped this weekend. A lot of good music we're gonna listen to. This week you got 2 Chainz drop music. You got Future and Lil Uzi Vert. I saw you was listening to that earlier. Masego dropped music. Danny Lay dropped music. And one of our guests that'll be on the show next week, Worldwide Bino dropped music. She dropped the EP, Bino and Friends, The Aftermath. Shout out to Worldwide Bino, Josh, Thomas, Todd, all y'all. Shout out to y'all. But it's an exciting weekend, man. It's a lot been going on with sports, with basketball. For everybody that knows, it's going to be a jam-packed show. It is going to be straight NBA talk. We promise y'all that content. We promise y'all we're going to give y'all our thoughts on the free agency, the draft, everything like that. One of the biggest things that came out is Houston, we have a problem. Houston seems like they might be on their way to a rebuild. You have PJ Tucker, who's upset with contract talks. You got Austin Rivers, who don't like his role. You got players subbing, saying that, the organization doesn't hold Harden accountable. And then you, of course, got Russ, who wants out. So what's your takes on what's everything going on with Houston? Is it seeming like, Houston's going to be in the lottery for Jalen Green next year?
I don't know about that, but I think that it could look a lot different than they did when we last saw them in the playoffs. Like Russ, it seems like he wants out, and that's sounding like it's going to happen before the season starts. So that's going to be a big piece they're losing. But I also saw somewhere that even in a trade, Paul George might come over. So that it might work out in their favor, honestly, because I don't think Russ and Harden really mesh well together. Like, at least Paul George can shoot. Like Russ is he's hit or miss. Some games he can hit, other games he looks like Shaq shooting threes out there. So it's not pretty in Houston. But like PJ Tucker, he's asking for more money, but I don't know how much more he wants, honestly, because it's like you're like a Draymond Green-ish type of player. Like you're low maintenance. You don't need the ball that much. You hit open shots in the corner, not everywhere else, just in the corner. And you play defense. That's about it. Like there's money to be made in the league for guys like that, but I'm not going to pay you like $12-15 million just to do that. Like you got to be able to dribble or something. You can't just 3-point shooter. I know guys that can do that aren't in the league. And Austin Rivers, like you said, Austin Rivers is unhappy. I don't know what he expects out of this. Like there's a new coach coming in. Maybe he stays and they start him alongside Harden, or maybe he's got to go because he was doing well off the bench for the Rockets down the stretch. Like he was playing well, and he's never been that kind of starting point guard type of player. He's more that off the bench spark plug that gets you a few points here and there, and when guys are hurt, he can fill in for them. But he's not somebody that I'm really gonna elevate, and he's not gonna make that big of a difference for the Rockets. So there's a lot to unpack with the Rockets, but I mean they're not even gonna let the head coach buy a house out there before they start moving out too. I mean, what's going on?
I think something that needs to be talked about, which we've talked about off camera, it has to, at this point, have to have a discussion of, is Harden the problem? Like, we have to really look at Harden. I mean, it was even reports coming out saying that one of the things Austin Rivers didn't like was during the regular season, Harden missed a free throw and yelled at Rivers and blamed it on him because he was standing up on the bench and it distracted him. So things like that. You CP3, They almost make the finals. CP3 is the reason to blame. He's shipped out of there. This season, oh, they should be making a threat. They should be a problem for the Lakers. They don't get past the Lakers. We all look to blame Russ. When I say we talking about fans. We talking about people in the media. Is Russ blamed and D'Antoni in the system? I haven't seen many people hold Harden accountable for Houston's lack of success. Me and you have talked about it. I think Harden plays a factor in why they aren't successful. And I think he's kind of having that Kobe effect in regards of, remember the 3 to 4 years, nobody wanted to come play with the Lakers. Nobody wanted to come play with Kobe. I think that's where Harden is heading down that path of ain't nobody going to want to play with him, and he's not going to win. And Kobe said it, rest in peace, Kobe. His style of play is not going to win a championship. Oh, I thought you was going to say something. I edited that part out.
we can edit that part, but nah, like you said, that style of play doesn't win basketball games. It's more of like, it's a flashy, fun way. It's what you want to play like on 2K, but I mean, 2K is not realistic. It is to an extent, but what you really need to do is play team ball. You got teammates for a reason. You're not just out there dribbling 35 times a possession and scoring points every time, hoping that wins games. Because, I mean, it's shown to win games in the regular season, but I don't see any rings on his finger. So clearly something's up. Something's got to change. And maybe he's got to change his mentality. Like I was saying before, and like a couple weeks ago, he might just have to change his style up. Maybe he doesn't bring up the ball as much. Maybe he plays a little off ball at the same time he's playing with the ball in his hands. Because honestly, him dominating the ball hasn't really brought as much success to the Rockets as people would think. Like, it's kind of like a facade. Like, regular season success is nice, but I mean, teams want to hold banners. They want to have parades. They don't throw parades for winning 50 games in the regular season. Because, I mean, if they did, Charles Barkley would have a lot of those. But
I mean, D'Antoni might have some personal banners inside his house. Like, hey, another season, 50 wins.
We led the league in scoring, but hey, that doesn't necessarily translate. So I thought maybe give the new coach a shot, but it doesn't look like Russ likes the direction of the team. Harden's questioning it. All these players are unhappy with their roles. I don't know. They haven't even practiced together with this new coach and seeing what system he wants to put in. Like, he just helped the Mavericks lead the league in scoring this past year, and still they're not going to give him a shot at trying. So I don't know. With that Rockets drama, it's interesting. It could blow up at some point soon, and they might want to look into the future and get as much for Harden while he's still young and profit off him that way. But I don't know. It's not winning any championships for them right now.
Yeah, they talking about Harden might be traded to Philly. I don't know about that pick. Like I said, in my opinion, I think regardless of where Harden goes, if he's playing that style of basketball, it doesn't matter if you put Shaq with him, you could put LeBron with him, you could take Michael Jordan in his heyday with him. I don't think it would work, that system. But it's been a lot of trade rumors, a lot of smoke screens, a lot of stuff being reports, and Woj is working and Shams is working and Yahoo Sports and Chris Haynes, they all putting out different reports. Of course, we start off with Russ, who's being reported can go anywhere from Clippers, Knicks, Magic, Wizards, Spurs, Hornets. For you, which team makes the most sense for Russ?
Honestly, it's the first team that you said, the Clippers, because they're a win now team. That's basically what Russ is screaming out behind the scenes, that he wants to win. He doesn't like the direction that the Rockets are heading, so he wants to win. So boom, now you go to the Clippers. You got Kawhi. You still got all these other guys too that can really help you get over the hump. Because maybe the Clippers think that Paul George was the issue on the team, and a lot of people were making fun of Pandemic P, but he's still worth a lot in this league, and he might just need a change of scenery just as much as Russ needs one. So you swap those two guys, and I think Russ could actually mesh a little better with Kawhi than Paul George because Russ can attack. He can attack, and that opens things up a little more for Kawhi for some of those shooters that they have on that team. So I think if they don't give up too many assets for him, maybe Paul George and a pick, because Russ still has that big contract that you have to pay him. Maybe that works for the Clippers. I wouldn't go into panic mode with them just yet, but some of these moves, that's what they could be. Like they could think that we've got this small window here for a title. Why not shoot for the moon and see if Westbrook can actually help us get over the hump?
I think that would work for the Clippers and their interest if it was a straight up, like if they get Paul George and maybe a draft pick, or from what I was reading, typically more than likely it's going to be Lou Will or Pat Bev or Trez in that mix. And if they do that, then I don't know. That's key pieces for them.
Yeah, well, it's got to be Pat Bev because they don't like each other. That wouldn't that wouldn't work. That's gonna be some awkward plane rides back and forth. It'll be funny though.
I know Westbrook wants to win now, but do the Rockets capitulate to what he wants, or do they get what's best for them? So I don't know. It depends if Clips want to give up Paul George. Would that work with Harton? We'll see. I think for the amount of pieces, because it's looking like they're going to be on the verge of going into a rebuild or restocking. I don't see them being, in that top 4 or 5 team conversation next year. I say maybe I'm thinking the Knicks. Would it be the best for the Knicks? Probably not. But if they could get back, reports are saying that they would get back Kevin Knox, 2020 and 2021 first round picks. I think that's a lot that they would get back. Kevin Knox could come in right now, make an impact, and then those draft picks would be huge in getting some young pieces to rebuild that team. And the Knicks seem like the team is bite on that because James Dolan has come out in the recent days saying he wants one of these big names, whether it's Russ, CP3, he wants a big name coming to New York this offseason. So I see the Knicks somewhere in the next couple of weeks making a trade that you probably won't like, but James Dolan will like.
Oof, I will hate that move. I hope we don't try to trade for Russ because there's too many times the Knicks have done this where they try to get the quick fix. They don't, play the long game and build organically. They try to, put a Band-Aid over an open wound so quickly instead of just trying to let the air get through and let it heal. But I don't know. I hope the Knicks. I've seen the rumors too about the Knicks looking at Russ, and I mean it's not like we're putting seats in the stands right now because probably there's not going to be any fans this year. So what's the point of bringing a superstar in and giving up all these pieces when it's not like we're selling out the Garden this year? It's probably going to be empty. So if I had James Dolan's ear, which I hope never happens, I would tell him, don't do this again. Don't do this to us again. This is not going to work.
I think also a possible landing spot where they would get a nice amount of assets back. Charlotte is in the conversation. That would be that hookup with Russ and Jordan, since he is on Jordan Brand. They're talking about the Rockets would get back Batum, Devontae Graham, Malik Monk, and the number 3 pick of this year's draft. Is that the best thing for Charlotte? Maybe. Big name. First time having a big name really in Charlotte for the Hornets in a while. I think it works for the Rockets getting Batum, Graham, and Monk, and the number 3 pick this year. that's a lot to get back for, again, even if they keep Harden, that's a lot of pieces that now you got going around Harden, and young person, probably at a top 3 pick. Just
I
something to
mean,
think.
honestly, the Hornets would be dumb. One, that would be robbery if they got Russ for just giving up that, because basically you're just trading the number 3 pick. Like, I don't think they're gonna sign Monk. He's been kind of shaky, and we know he's had his issues. But Batum, that's the main issue. It's like that contract should be immovable. Like
They,
he's been awful. He's been awful since he signed that contract. And if they were able to get him off the team, I don't care if I have to pay Russell 50 million. That's a win. That already improves the team, but it also doesn't make sense because they have a couple young guards on their team
you give it a
already.
Devontae Graham. I guess you put him in that slot. Put Terry Rozier at the 2. I guess that could work. I think it'll be, like I said, the Rockets will win in that. We'll get a lot of pieces back, and regardless, outside of one other proposed trade, Batum's contract would match up money wise for Westbrook, and that'd be a win in regards for the Hornets to get rid of him. So Batum's contract, like you said, is a pretty terrible one. But shout out to Batum for getting paid. One of the next players that everybody's talking about is Drew Holiday, one of the most underappreciated guards. Seems like the Pelicans are trying to shop him. One of the teams they're talking, well, it's a couple of teams, but you got the Nuggets, Nets, Warriors, Hawks, and Pacers as some of the teams that's up there, and the Celtics as a possible destination for Drew Holiday. Where do you think would be the best fit for Drew Holiday and his defensive talents and his leadership?
Honestly, I think if the Nets could swing that trade, probably the Nets. It would probably cost them like Levert, maybe Dinwiddie, maybe that first round pick at the end of this draft. But if you can get Drew Holiday, that takes pressure off of Kyrie because we know Kyrie's not a defender. So now you could put you could put Drew on the better guard, and that really changes things up for them. Like he can play off guard. He's been playing off guard really for a while now, especially last year with Lonzo. So he's already accustomed to playing off ball. It'll take an adjustment, but I think that team, which is already nasty, is going to be sick if they get Drew Holiday on that team. Like he's an all NBA defender. Like KD's already a really good defender. You got Jared Allen still, who's also a really good defender. So now this team's not only dangerous offensively, they have the defense too to match up. So that already vaults them probably to like a top 2, maybe even the best team in the East, which is what they're going for. This is basically a 3-year, we're going all in basically for a ring because I don't think that these guys are going to stay after these 3 years, and I don't know if this will even work, but it's worth a shot. So I think the best place for him is the Nets, but I also thought it was intriguing that the Celtics were looking at it too. But with that, I'm thinking, why not trade? If you're going to do that, trade Kemba in the deal. Because Kemba's he's good. He's really good, but he's a liability defensively. He was hit or miss in the playoffs last year. Like I think Drew Holiday slides in. He goes back to playing point guard for them. He's a really good shooter. You don't miss that much between Drew Holiday and Kemba. You actually probably gain a little bit just because you get that defender to go along with all those other guys you have, like Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Like that team, if they're trying to compete next year, be a top 3 team in the East, I would see what I can do because they do have 3 first-round picks this year too. So they have ammo to blow if they want to get Drew Holiday. So they might not even have to give up Kemba, but I would at the same time look at moving Kemba, honestly.
Yeah, if Boston is the landing spot, I get rid of Kemba, and also on the fact of that's less shots that need to go around between Kemba, Jaylen Brown. You got Jason Tatum and Hayward still on the books. I would go with getting rid of Kimba because then now it's never been in Drew Holiday's career where he's averaging 20, 25 points a night. Even on teams where you would want him to do that, he still is facilitating. He still is managing the game. He picks his spots. So I like that pick, but I think the spot for him would be Denver. They're talking about Gary Harris, Bobo, and the 22nd pick and the lottery pick in 2022 for Drew Holiday. Gary Harris, you get him out of there. He didn't really play that well in the bubble. He's not living up to what they wanted in regards to having that two guard system. You put in Drew Holiday with Jamal Murray, Jokic. Now you got Drew Holiday as a defender, would take some pressure off of Murray. Murray might not have to guard the most explosive guard, so you put Drew Holiday on him, get some of the ball handling responsibilities to him, and he's able to find them in the right spots. Jamal Murray doesn't have to go one-on-one the whole time. I think that's a good trade for them, and I think that puts Denver in the top teams to contend with the Lakers next year if you get Drew Holiday on that squad. And it'll be good, I think, for Bobo. He'll be going to somewhere where he can probably get some playing time. I don't think he's getting playing time with how the Denver Nuggets squad is right now with Porter Jr. You still got Jokic. They probably want to sign back Jeremy Grant. There's not going to be, you feel me, a lot of playing time there for Bobo. Next person we saw that was part of the trade rumors is Aaron Gordon. A lot of people are thinking, a lot of reports are saying that it's Aaron Gordon along with that 15th pick for the Magic to try to move up in the draft. Where do you see Aaron Gordon being a good fit?
That's a tough question because he's kind of a tweener. Like he's not that big for power forward, but he's also a little too big for a small forward, which it almost seems like he tries to be. So, I mean, if you're gonna trade him along with that 15th pick, I mean, I would look at the Bulls as a place. There's not many places for him, especially with that contract. But yeah, the Bulls, if they're moving in a younger way, honestly, that makes sense. You get the pick, you get Aaron Gordon, you probably trade Lauri Markkanen in that deal too, because I don't know if they really know what to do with him. Like he could be good, but they haven't used him the right way. So you get him out of there. And then you see what you got. You got Levine, Aaron Gordon, 15th pick, plus you have your pick too, which is a top 10 pick. Bulls could be looking okay in the next few years. I don't see them as like contenders. This is not a flashback to the Jordan era, but this could be the start of something good. Maybe turn them into a playoff team because it doesn't take that much in the East. You could be 35 wins deep and be an 8 seed. So I think that's his best bet.
Yeah, he's not what Orlando has wanted or expected since drafting him. I think maybe T-Wolves, you could send them over there. They sip James Johnson in a draft pick for Gordon. There you have your, per se, big three. They're looking for that other young piece. Of course, Minnesota wants Devin Booker, but we don't see that happen in the foreseeable future. The Phoenix Suns, I don't see them giving up Devin Booker just to appease Minnesota, just to appease Devin Booker because he want to be there. They don't have assets to send back to Phoenix, and especially how they played in the bubble, I can't see them getting rid of Devin Booker anytime soon. What I would see, though, is them trying to get assets to have Devin Booker stay, to prove to him that they're trying to get to the playoffs. But T-Wolves, there'll be another young piece right there in Aaron Gordon. Instead of Devin Booker, you put a little big three. You got D'Angelo at the 1. You can put Aaron Gordon at the 3, Cat at the 4 or the 5. That's a pretty big front court right there.
It's not the best fit on that team because, I mean, Aaron Gordon, he's worked on his shot, but he's better, closer to the rim. And Cat, I don't know. I just don't see that as a great fit if they do try to work out a trade like that.
But Cat is really turning into that stretch five, so it'll be space down there. And I think part of the thing with Aaron Gordon too, they tried to make him the franchise player, and that's not. So if you put him on a team with Minnesota where you have your franchise player, he could probably flourish. He's not the main. He's not going to be that main option. You feel me? So it's not going to be that much on his shoulders, that much pressure. And Cat has been taking some of the most threes attempted a game for bigs in the last like 2-3 years. Stretch it out. We don't. I mean, I don't. I don't view Cat as your prototypical bang on the post type of big. He's the opposite of Joel Embiid. He rather stretch. He's more finesse. Now, if you're talking about Embiid wants to go down there. So I think it could possibly work. I don't think any team, like they talked about the Spurs might be the option, the Nets might be the option. I think wherever Aaron Gordon goes, it's tough. There's not that many options. There's not that many teams interested, especially with that contract and how he's been playing. So it's kind of like a toss-up. Whoever wants to take him, so Orlando could try to move up. Another player that has been mentioned as a possible suitor to the Knicks is CP3. We talked about this back in, I think, March, and you were adamant you did not want Chris Paul on the Knicks.
Still don't. Only way I would want him is if we do take a point guard at 8 and he could mentor him kind of the way he did with Shea last year a little bit. But even then, I'd want the rookie to get in there and, figure out the league for himself. That's what some of these guys have been given the opportunity, like Ja Morant, all these other guards that they've come into the league and been given a shot. But I mean, if the Knicks want to, trade all those assets just to get Chris Paul and pay him like $45 million a year, then I don't know what to tell you. It's just that same Knicks, not gonna curse, same Knicks stuff every year.
So I gotta run this by you. Speaking of the Knicks, is some reports of they are trying to get CP3 because this will be the, how do you say it, the domino effect. You get CP3, Melo will come back. There's reports that Melo wants to reunite, and if they get CP3, it's kind of, without said, it's automatic that Melo will be back playing with CP3, his brother in New York. What's your thoughts on that possibly happening? I think that'll put you on the playoff conversation.
It would. It could. I wouldn't even guarantee it would happen, but definitely would make us a better team. But I don't know if it would be good for us because we got like a team full of young guys, which some of those will get shipped out if we trade for Chris Paul. I get that. But like Carmelo's not really a game changer anymore as far as like competing for championships. Chris Paul, he needs a better supporting cast in order to do that. But I don't know. It's like it's shaky. It'll be a shaky move to try to win now when clearly we haven't won for a while now. So I mean, we're picking in the lottery again for a reason. Let's develop these guys. We brought in like player development coaches to help facilitate this rebuild. So let's try that instead of like bringing CP3 in way after we could have or should have, and then bringing Carmelo back for what, a farewell tour? I don't get it. I don't want it.
Well, which team makes sense for CP3 now? It's been teams talking about Phoenix, 76ers, the Bucks, the Bulls, the Magic, the Spurs. I mean, it's a lot of teams that are interested in CP3. Miami's been put in there. Shout out to Miami. Caron Butler just got hired to be an assistant coach there, and they re-upped another year. Speaking of farewell tour, Udonis Haslem was able to finesse another contract out of Miami, and not as a coach, but as a player. But
I mean, if they're gonna pay him $2 million every time he's about to retire, like what? That's like hitting the lottery. He plays like 12 minutes a season. And that's not a game, that's a season. Like he gets in maybe 30 seconds at the end of a blowout. That's it. I don't know what use. He's basically a player coach because I think Spoelstra might get more playing time than him.
So what team fits best? What team makes actual sense in your mind for CP3?
I like that Suns move.
Yo,
I think that would
yo,
look really good, like him and Devin Booker, because it would suck if Devin Booker had to get traded to do well. But I think the Suns, before they were this bad, they did have success with like D'Antoni, Steve Nash, Stoudemire, even back when Barkley was there, when they made that run to the finals. Like they've been good. They've had good seasons and a good track record, but it's been a little up and down as of late. But I mean, they do have some momentum coming from the bubble where they were undefeated. They look like one of the better teams. Maybe if they had more games to play, they could have made the playoffs, but that definitely makes them an attractive place to play. And if you add a point guard, which I mean, Ricky Rubio's decent, but I think even if you don't watch basketball, you know CP3 is a better point guard than Ricky Rubio off the bat. So I think if they don't have to give up too many assets that you know kill the team and the chemistry that they had, then yeah, I would go after CP3 and try to get him. And I think that's his best fit as far as coming in and helping a team turn it around because that's kind of what he's being used as at this point. He's being used as a fixer. He's like Bob the Builder at this point. You give him an opportunity somewhere else and he turns it into gold.
I think we on the same page with that one. When I saw the Suns as a possible destination, and it's looking real like is they already the OKC gave CP3 permission, so it's really looking like Phoenix might be a landing spot for CP3, which I think that puts Phoenix straight into the conversation of that maybe beyond that eighth seed. Now we're talking about maybe a sixth seed, fifth seed with CP3, and all they got to get rid of really is like Oubre Jr. and Ricky Rubio. I think that puts them in the conversation. They also mentioned like Philly, him reuniting with Doc Rivers, but I don't think that'll be the best fit with Simmons, who seems like he needs the ball somewhat, playing a little bit point off the ball, and B, maybe if we're going to give a second option outside of the Suns, maybe we could see the Bucks. They're making something happen. We talked about it. The Bucks probably need somebody like CP3 because I don't trust, and many don't, Eric Bledsoe as your point guard to get you to the promised land. So if the Suns don't get him, I think the Bucks got to do everything in their power to make it happen. They got to get CP3 because Eric Bledsoe isn't going to do it. You add CP3 getting the ball to Chris Middleton, Giannis in the right spots, and then you got the stretch fives with the Lopez brothers. Now you're talking about Milwaukee's that number one seed going to the finals. Oladipo was up there. It was reports that he requested a trade in front of his teammates, asking other teams like, yo, can I come play with you? He came out a couple of minutes before our show started saying that was not true. He's committed to Orlando. He's committed to Indiana. So he's off the books for a trade option. As far as we know, he wants to actually stay in Indiana. But one of his teammates is definitely still up there in trade conversations. Miles Turner, who has become a stretch five, essentially. They tried it with him and Sabonis, and they like that combination. But there's a lot of teams interested in wanting Miles Turner. Specifically, you got the Celtics and the Hornets in that mix. Who do you think is the best fit for Miles Turner, or do you think that's a player that Indiana should just keep?
I think for him, the best place probably would be Charlotte, but I think impact wise, he'd be better on the Celtics just because he'd come in starting center right off the bat because they've been bringing all these journeyman centers over the last few years. and he'd already be better than all of them. And he'd add that defensive presence. He's a big. He's not supposed to be just chilling at the 3-point line the whole game, which basically that's what he's been doing in Indiana, and that's not his fault. It's just that Sabonis is a lot better than he is, and that's not his fault. But as far as fit, I think that would be a good fit because pick and roll, he can do pick and pop. He can pick and roll to the rim with Kemba or any of the bigs or any of the forwards on the Celtics. So he just adds a different element that the Celtics really haven't had in a while and just improves that defense, especially if they could work out a Drew Holiday trade and a Miles Turner trade in the same offseason, then I think that already makes them like the best team in the East.
Now, if you get Drew Holiday and you add Miles Turner, getting rid of Kimba and Gordon Hayward, I like that. I think Indiana for them, based off of what the reports of what they'll get back, I think they keep them in their system. It was working. Him and Sabonis. Some injuries caused it not to continue, and Sabonis wasn't in the bubble with them. So I think Indiana should keep him and try it one more year with them. As you said, that's their offense style. He's shooting a lot of threes. So hey, it was working a little bit last year. So why not keep him unless you were able to get something back? But I ain't seen nothing really that would be a win for them in regards to one of the other teams that is looking for that third star to make that push in the West, though, are the Mavericks. It's been linked from Bradley Beal to Dinwiddie. Who do you think would be a good fit as a third star for the Mavericks if they're able to get him? I think Bill, but I don't think Bill is up for an option.
Yeah, it would probably have to be Bill, honestly, because they would just need a shooter alongside those three. Because Luka just breaks down the defense. Porzingis, he'll hang around the three, run to the rim sometimes. But Beal, he could honestly open up that offense even more and make them even more dangerous. That would probably make them like a top 3 team in the Western Conference because they were already pretty good. Like they almost beat the Clippers, if not for Porzingis being hurt again, which that could be an issue. That might put a little pause on them making a trade because they just don't know with Porzingis. But I think Beal would be the best option. But at the same time, I don't think the Wizards are going to trade Beal. I think that they're going to try to work this out, make this work with him. John Wall's coming back, and he looks good. But it would definitely have to be a shooter. I would hope that, Tim Hardaway stays on. Even though he's not a star, he did play well for them down the stretch. And maybe that's the route they go. Instead of shooting for the stars, as they say, you just aim a little lower and you're able to build a more balanced team, a deeper team, instead of, being so top heavy.
I like that combination with Hardaway and Seth Curry coming off the bench, both of them being shooters, and they both excelled in the bubble in the playoffs. I think they keep that. I think they should keep that same roster. Maybe they get somebody in free agency. If you keep those assets that they have right now, they're a pretty deep team, and you add somebody in free agency, maybe another shooter, maybe another a big or a stretch big, especially with
Boogie's out
his injury. Maybe you add a Boogie in for you could get Boogie on the cheap. He's coming off another injury instead of trading one of their assets. They were pretty deep last year, like to have the injuries and whatnot and still be able to almost beat the Clippers. You add maybe somebody to give Porzingis a break where in a 72-game season coming up, maybe you do a little bit of, sitting Porzingis down every other game and you have another big coming there. Maybe you give Porzingis the Kawhi treatment,
They gave up a lot, though. Like, I feel like at the end of this trade, once this contract's done, people should agree that the Knicks won the trade because even though we got Dennis Smith and he's a shell of himself, we got all those first-round picks, which, I mean, if they don't win, if, like, Porzingis gets hurt, puts more pressure on Luka. And that puts less wins in the win column for them. So that gives us even better picks. So we kind of knew what was going to happen. We knew that Porzingis is injury prone. It's not a secret anymore. It's kind of like patented in his game that he's a shooter and he gets hurt every year. That's basically what it is. So I don't know. I think the Mavericks should just stand pat with what they have and not do anything drastic because it's not like they have that many assets to be drastic with. Like they gave us 3 first-round picks. Like what? Now you're going to trade a sixth grader or a fifth grader, down the line? Basically what it is, because we've got like the next 3 first-round picks after this year. So I don't know. I think Luka's good enough to put the team on his back, clearly. Now just fill in those holes and those gaps where they lie.
Yeah, maybe you try to get Jordan Clarkson, a Christian Wood, maybe if y'all want to try to pay him. Like, I think they should get something in free agency, not trading. Like I said, they have a pretty good young nucleus, and to break that up to try to get like Bradley Bill, it'll be the same thing with the Knicks. You're probably gonna have to give up 3, 4 assets for one person, and if y'all don't win, ends up not being the best trade in the long run. But free agency, it'll be 2 days after the draft. It's going to be jam-packed draft, free agency, and then a week or two after that, you have training camp. Now, some of the teams that have the most cap coming up in free agency, Atlanta, they have 43.2 mil. Your Knicks, they got $41.5 million in cap space. The Pistons at 28.2. The Hornets, 22.5. Miami, who just came off of making the finals, has $20.9 million in cap room. They could definitely make a splash in free agency. Then you got Phoenix, who has $18.9 million in cap room. What teams you see should be buying and going all in free agency, and what teams should just, in your opinion, just pump the brakes and stay still?
I mean, that Hawks team definitely should. They shouldn't go all in, but definitely they should be very active in free agency because they got a superstar in Trae Young. They got a couple young pieces alongside him. Cam Reddish. They got John Collins. They traded for Clint Capella too, so now you have a defensive big. Now make some moves. Sign some other shooters. Sign some guys that can come off the bench and create noise. Maybe a Clarkson, like you said. But they're definitely a team that should try to make some moves because if they don't, they're going to be stuck in this kind of like purgatory of mediocrity. They're not going to be that good. Like it's only a few years ago that they were, the best team in the East. So why not try to get back there? Because that was an attractive place. I mean, Atlanta, they got the trap down there. So that's also an attractive destination, I feel like. But definitely the Heat and the Suns should be probably the most active teams in free agency, just off the fact that they're both coming off of pretty successful bubble runs, one more successful than the other. But at the same time, the Suns showed that they do have the pieces on that team to be good. They just need to, get some better pieces to help. Like maybe a better point guard. If there's a guy out there, maybe you look at Fred VanVleet, see if he would come to the Suns because he did say he's willing to go where the money is. And if the Suns, they're willing to open their checkbook, I'm sure he wouldn't mind going to Arizona where it's always warm. So that's a big difference from Toronto.
Toronto.
I'm sure he doesn't have to bring any of those bubble jackets that he had, any of those Canada Gooses. But yeah, the Suns would be a good option for him. The Heat, I mean, this team, without those injuries, they were pretty good already and could have pushed that series a little further than it was. But you just have to look at fits. Like, I mean, Kelly Olynyk, he's got the player option. He'll probably pick that up because I don't think he'll get signed for that much anywhere else.
What
Dragic, he's another one you gotta keep an eye on.
What do you think about? It's been rumored, it's been thrown out there. What do you think about DeMar DeRozan going to Miami?
The more I say it, the less I like it, as Drake said. I don't know. I don't think that's not a good fit because him and Jimmy, they play the same position, basically the same roles on each team, and I don't know. I don't think that's a good fit.
I had to run it by you. It's rumored out there. DeMar DeRozan has a player option. Many are thinking he's not staying in San Antonio. Gallinari is going to be a free agent out there. Hayward, player option. They're thinking he might take the bag or he might just get out to try to get a better role instead of backing up Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Um, I think one of the that we got to see where he lands. He's going to get the bag is Fred VanVleet. I think he's a big pickup, but teams that should take free agency all in, I think your Knicks need to be getting some free agents, somebody with all that cap space. I know you don't like anybody in free agency for y'all though.
I don't think there's anybody really for us to sign in free agency. I mean, we have all that
What if
cap space. We
what
might
if
just.
Christian Wood want to?
I mean, he's good, but we do have Julius Randle. So at the same time, we'd have to get him out of there, honestly, because he's not somebody I would want to build my team around or have on my team at all. So you could see why that's an issue. I mean, hopefully we try to move him at some point. I don't. Hopefully, when the season starts on the 22nd next month, he's not here. But I doubt. I doubt I'll get my wish. Um, but we have all this money, so I think with that in mind, I keep hearing rumors like they're kind of moving towards a win now mode, but also they might pivot and try to make a few trades where they have to eat some salary, where they get assets for the future, which it's not a bad move. We're not exactly a year away from a finals run, or maybe a few years if things go right with these picks and some people finally decide that New York's a beautiful place to come. But right now, I just I hope that we're not trying to go all in on a run here. Just because we have Tibbs, who's a good coach, who's a winning coach, doesn't mean that we move away from this youth movement that we've been in. Like we have all these young players, and the coaching staffs before haven't done them any justice. They haven't done anything to help them improve. Like Knox had a decent rookie season, and then they sign Marcus Morris, who starts over him. So what does that do for his confidence? And then you have the coach who's pulling him if he turns it over. It doesn't really help. So I don't know. I don't think the Knicks should be looking to do what they did. What was that? 10 years ago when they made that move for Melo. Like we were a good team already at that point, and who's to say Melo wouldn't have come in free agency? So I don't know. I don't. It's confusing. It's really confusing as a Knicks fan to see what direction we are going to go in. But I know many Knicks fans, we can agree that we're not going to win a championship anytime soon. So why not embrace this youth movement and develop these guys and develop from within? That's what some of the good teams have done. That's what the Heat have done. So that's all I got to say about it. You could go.
Um, all I could say, I hope y'all don't sign Jeremy Lin, who's actually coming back, and he's feeling like he should have a good season coming up. So as long as y'all don't sign Jeremy Lin in free agency and have Lin Sanity again, I don't think that would be the best thing. You mentioned earlier how you think the Knicks probably gonna have zero fans, but it came out. Golden State already has planned that they will have 50% fans in attendance. What's your thoughts on the Warriors having actually fans? And if the Warriors are having fans, is it a possibility you see this across the board with teams?
I think that for now, that's what they're going to say. But the later it gets into the winter months, like December, January, I don't see how you could have fans. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like we're already moving toward like maybe another lockdown, which is not going to stop sports, as you see, but it's going to slow up the process of bringing fans back into the picture. So I know it's a little, lenient out there in California, but they're going to have to come back and look at the rest of the country and see maybe we don't do this right now. Maybe we as a collective decide that we're not going to have fans until it's safe, until everything's figured out. So
I think you're going to see, though, it's going to be just like in NFL. You're going to have certain teams having fans, some not. I think, like you said, California's pretty lenient, and I think you see in Miami also. Miami, Orlando, I see like in Florida, maybe even Atlanta, I see them having, you know, fans at their games because those typically, so far as we're seeing, are kind of more lenient. Even Texas with Dallas and San Antonio and Houston, you see in NFL, Cowboys, even though they shouldn't, just because how terrible they are, they have at their games. So I can see certain states rocking out and having fans at their games. It seems like up here, Jersey, tri-state area, seems like, we get it regarding COVID. So I don't think you'll see fans at the Knicks games. One of the things we have to talk about that we'll end off the show with is the NBA draft. October 18th is coming up. We're going to break down top 15 picks, who we think goes where, who we think stays, if they keep it or if they trade it. Number one pick, as everybody knows, it's been well documented at this point, is the Timberwolves. Who do you think goes as the number one pick?
I don't know. I just don't think that it's like so clear cut like most years where, I mean, last year we had Zion, other years Carl Towns, Kyrie, LeBron. It's not like a clear number one pick, but I don't really see how you pass up on LaMelo, honestly, because he just has a different feel for the game that, I mean, that adds another element to that Timberwolves team, and that could actually help them more than bringing in a scorer like Anthony Edwards, because they have somebody like that on their team that they could just re-sign in Malik Beasley, and then that be that. And then they have LaMelo, who he can run that team. He might not run it off the bat, but he could definitely run that team and make the right plays because he's been brought up the right way. I mean, his pops he's an interesting character. So I don't know if he's gonna like having him all the way out in Minnesota, but I mean it's his career at this point. So I don't think teams should be scared off by the pops at this point. He's just a voice in the background. LaMelo, he doesn't speak for LaMelo.
See, I think they do draft Anthony Edwards mainly off of the fact of, like you just mentioned, Malik Beasley, who more than likely is going to want some money. If you're trying to save money, you draft Anthony Edwards, scorer, put him on the side of D'Angelo Russell, and you're going to get him on that rookie contract. That saves a bunch of money instead of trying to sign back Malik Beasley, which can be pricey being at his value for that team. So I see them drafting Anthony Edwards. I think, that'll be a better fit than LaMelo. If you're trying to keep D'Angelo happy, I don't think he was really on board. He, played professional and, kept face, but I don't think he would have been on board before even he got injured. Steph Curry and him long term. D'Angelo, I think, wants the ball in his hands pretty much. I think he proved that in Brooklyn. They just went with Kyrie just like the Celtics did. You had a proven with Isaiah Thomas, you went for Kyrie. Brooklyn, D'Angelo gets them to the playoffs, you go for Kyrie. So I think he's proven he could be the main man.
Yeah, I mean, I think this also could be a move that builds a little buzz around Minnesota. It's been kind of dry over there lately. There's not much to be excited about. Any sports to be excited about. So if you bring in Lamelo, I mean, he's already got like superstar status out there. Like he's been in the limelight since a kid. So he's not going to be afraid of the moment. He's not afraid. He's ready for this. He's been ready for this. He's been prepared for this exact moment. So I think thinking about that and the fact that he's a really good player and makes the right play, he doesn't, hunt his shot, which I mean, Anthony Edwards, he'd probably be better suited going to the Warriors where they could kind of reel that scorer's mentality in a little bit and help him develop like a more team mindset. So I
So you
think
continue Edwards going too?
I would say so because I don't think that for the Warriors they don't really need to take a big that early. I think you could have Anthony Edwards as a scoring punch off the bench. You could sign one of these cheaper options out there. You could go after like Cauley Stein. You could even look at a Trez if he's a free agent. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that you could go with instead of drafting Wiseman, which they've been rumored to be looking at. But I mean, you don't really turn down an Anthony Edwards if he drops to 2. Like he's a top 1 talent. It's just there's another top 1 talent who affects the game of basketball a little more than he does. So it is what it is.
I think Warriors. That's how I see it going. I think the Warriors draft LaMelo and trade with Detroit, who has been said to
Mm.
want him. I don't think he fits as well in Detroit as he would maybe in Golden State or even the Hornets, but I think that's how it's going to go. They'll draft LaMelo, trade him to Detroit. Golden State moves down in the draft to that 7th pick, and they get there big in that pick, in the 7th pick, instead of at the 2nd point. 3rd pick we got is the Hornets. I think the Hornets, how my bracket is going so far, Wiseman is still out there for an option. I think they draft Wiseman. They don't really have a solidified big there. You draft Wiseman, put him with Terry Rozier, Devontae Graham, Batum probably still be under contract, Malik Monk, Miles Bridges. You got a nice young nucleus there, and then you got your big now. So I think they draft Wiseman.
Yeah, I think Wiseman's the pick if he drops that far. We don't know if any team's going to trade up. This is, I guess, just a draft without trades that we're doing. But like the Hornets, they do need a big. I don't know if they would draft Lamelo if he dropped that far. The only pick I could see them doing maybe the Israel kid, but um, Wiseman. I don't really see how you turn down that guy because on a normal year he might be the number 1 pick. If he played the whole year in college, he might have been the number 1 pick. But he played maybe like 5, 6 games, not as much tape on him. But you can't teach the size that he has, like 7 foot, can jump out the gym like that, defensive big too, and he can shoot a little bit too. So that'll definitely help Charlotte improve because they definitely could use some improvements over there. I mean,
Yeah, I think Wiseman, regardless, is going number 2 or number 3. Whether that pick gets traded or not, he's already gave the cold shoulder. It's a foregone conclusion. He gave the cold shoulder to the T Wolves. He's not trying to go there. So he's going 2nd or 3rd, whoever ends up drafting him, whether it's traded or not. I think there will be those first 3 picks definitely is going to be going up till draft night, like hours before, even during there. Those 3 picks are definitely going to be in conversation to be traded. So we'll see what happens. We're making our own educated guess on what's going to happen. I think Warriors actually trade their pick. That 4th pick, we mentioned the Chicago Bulls, who are far removed from the Jordan glory days. even the Defoe's glory days far removed from that. Who do you see them picking at that fourth pick? Do they keep it or do they trade it?
I mean, I would keep it honestly because it's not like they can afford to just trade picks. If nobody's coming there, then this is their only option at this point. So I would take the Israeli kid, Denny Avija, however you say his name. I'm not trying to butcher it, but I would definitely see him as a better option for them. Like he's 6'9", athletic. He can play that like secondary playmaker role on this team, and it, they don't need a point guard. They took Kobe White last year, and he looked good in spurts. They got Levine, so they don't need a shooting guard. They got Wendell Carter Jr. Don't need a big. So what else do you need? You need a small forward who can shoot, which he's young, but he's been playing pro for years now. So usually those overseas players come over a little more ready than some of these like high school, college kids to play in the NBA. Usually, there's always that outlier like Darko Milicic, which I'm not comparing him to him, but that's probably what scares some teams off from taking European guys before Luca came. Because before Luca, people had their doubts about him too. But we see what happened with that. So that might start a trend where people start looking back overseas and taking those guys because they see. I mean, Luca came over here second year averaging almost a 30-point triple double. And I don't think we can expect that out of Denny, but I think he has attributes that can definitely help the Bulls win some more games now. Not win a championship, but get better.
I think I would pick Onyeka on Okongu. I don't want to butcher his name. You add him to the mix with a Wendell Carter Jr. That solidifies, I think, your front court right there. He's versatile. One of the people that he's compared to, I don't know if he's there yet or maybe he'll end up there, but Bobby Hurley compared him to Bam Adebayo. So if that's his ceiling and he can get there, I think that's a nice future piece that you have there with Wendell Carter Jr. and Kobe White. I don't see Zach LaVine being in the mix in the long term, but if you had those big three, Wendell Carter Jr., Onyeka, and Kobe White, that's a nice big three building towards a future for a young nucleus.
Definitely.
You got next, number 5, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who they've been missing LeBron, Kyrie, Richard Jefferson. They've been pretty terrible since. Colin Sexton hasn't turned out to be what they wanted as of yet. They was just in the top lottery pick last year. They got Darius Garland. So they got 2 guards right there. Who do you see the Cavs taking?
I feel like they don't have to look that far because he was in their backyard in Obi Toppin. I think that's probably their best fit. He brings a little flash, something they haven't really had since LeBron left. He was the best player in college basketball last year. So he's seasoned. He's played against some better competition than some of these young guys that you have to project. So you kind of know what he's bringing. He's an athletic power forward who can stretch the floor a little bit. Defensively, he leaves something to want. Like he's not the best defender, but some guys you can teach that in the league. You can't teach the athleticism. You can't teach that flair because I've seen him do some crazy dunks in a game, and not to say that's what's going to win games, but I think that after taking 2 point guards in a row, they're not necessarily going to be looking at guard right now. They're looking at a big, and he's probably the best big left on the board if we're taking Onyeka off the board. And yeah, I definitely would like that pick for them.
I agree. I got Obi Toppin going there. I think it's a no-brainer if he's on the board at that time. I think he'll be draft him, and when you in regards to defense, yeah, that's one of the things that they pointed out as something that he lacks in his game. But typically, who really plays good defense in the league? A lot of team defense, and you want to see lockdown defense. You want to see teams and players locking in on defense win the playoffs, and the Cavs are not making the playoffs anytime soon. So go ahead and get that offense. And when they have allowed people to be in the seats, you're going to have people come to see your games because of Obi, Garland shooting, Sexton maybe, but Obi Toppin, no brainer, draft him. Y'all not making the playoffs anytime soon, so might as well be an exciting team at least. The Hawks, who have the number 6 pick, I think they go with Tyrese Halliburton. That gives him Trae Young, who had one of the highest usage rates this season. That gives him a break. That gives the opportunity when he comes off the bench for Tyrese. Now you have somebody else who's a playmaker who can make shots, and you kind of don't. Of course, they're not the same player, but you kind of don't miss a step if you have to put Trae Young on the bench, give him a breather. You have that, and I'm pretty sure you could probably mix that up with having them on the court at the same time. So I think Tyrese.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tyrese is the pick that they're going to make here, honestly, because he's a good secondary option. He doesn't have to have the ball in his hands, which, I mean, Trae Young, he won't. So he's going to be a good spot-up shooter, which he had success in college doing that. And he's a defender. He can play defense. He's a bigger guard. Because, I mean, Trae Young, at his size, he'll kind of get abused defensively. So now you can hide Trae Young on somebody who's not one of the better options on offense on the other team, and then put Tyrese on them, and that takes a little pressure off Trae and maybe gives them a little more energy on offense. So I think they have a nice young nucleus here, and depending on what they do in free agency with all that money, they could be looking pretty good over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think for them it's huge what they do in free agency. You know, with John Collins there, Trae Young, you add Tyrese. We'll see what they could do. I think they still who they draft last year.
They drafted Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter.
Cam Reddish. So Cam Reddish started to kind of come on at the end of the year. If you could get a full season of Cam Reddish playing well, as you said, that's a nice young nucleus, and you add some veteran leadership, I think, to that mix. Like they said, Vince Carter was huge for them, even though he retired, but that veteran leadership to help them get into the conversation, 9th, 10th seed this year. Like you said, the East is weak. You might be able to get into the playoffs with 30, 35 wins. Next team who also has been struggling in the East, Detroit. I already said I think they're trading that to Golden State. I think Golden State will take Denny Avdija. That's who I think they'll pick at that 7th pick. Who do you see Detroit picking if they still have that pick?
Well, they don't have a point guard on the roster, really. I mean, they have Luke Kennard, who's a shooting guard. He's good. They drafted the guy from overseas. I forget his name last year. They still have Blake Griffin, but like I said, point guard is basically what you're going to need in this league. Like, this league's basically a point guard driven league at this point. So I could see them, since they're not really winning anytime soon, going after Killian Hayes, the young guy from France. I like him. He's got the pick and roll game, lefty. He reminds me of D'Angelo a little bit with that. What?
Would you start him over D Rose?
I think they're gonna trade D Rose. I don't know if D Rose is actually gonna, make it to the start of the season. Because once trades go down, teams are gonna start looking at the Pistons because D Rose is still good. He could be an option for maybe, the Lakers if it comes down to it. But I don't know if they're really looking at D Rose as an option for the future here. So why not try to get something for him now, take the point guard of the future, and then if they do get a pick from whatever team they trade D Rose to. Then you just keep developing this team because the Pistons are kind of bare right now. They traded Drummond, probably going to trade D Rose. I could see them trading Blake too, because honestly, he's being paid a lot of money for this team to, either be hurt or not do much for them. So there's a lot of moves to be made in Detroit, but this I think is the best one going forward.
Number 8, the New York Knickerbockers. Who do you see y'all picking at that pick? Who do you guys want?
I mean, honestly, I hope Killian were to drop. That would be my number one point guard if LaMelo's not available. But if he doesn't, which in this mock draft he's not, I like Kira Lewis. I like Kira Lewis from Alabama. I think he would give us a different looking point guard that we haven't seen in a while. One that's lightning quick. He reminds me of a mix of like De'Aaron Fox and just not and Ja Morant, but just not as explosive, like jumping wise as him. But same type of speed. I see him as somebody that we could bring in. He played well down the stretch last year and showed that he can play this position at the next level. And he's young. Like he's a sophomore, but he's the same age as basically the freshmen that are coming out right now. So I think if we're going to take a point guard, which seems like we've stockpiled point guards on this team right now, but hey, you don't stop swinging until you hit something. And I mean, we haven't hit on point guards yet, so we're going to keep swinging. And Kira Lewis is definitely somebody I would like. He could break down the defense, add another element, open the offense up for Mitch, for RJ. Well, we're definitely going to need some more shooting. So that if we did later on in the draft, that's what we're going to be looking at too, is getting shooting. But if Kira Lewis isn't the pick, I think Devin Vassell from Florida State would be the pick.
That's what I see. That's a 3-and-D guy. Being that y'all have so many guards, I was thinking that y'all wouldn't go with point guard, especially with y'all being in the conversation of trying to get CP3 or Russ. I see you getting Devin Vassell, 3-and-D guy. Y'all need defense. Put him on the wing. That takes a little bit of pressure off of RJ Barrett of having to be the best small forward or shooting guard. So I think they'll go with Vassell. It's not that many options per se of like franchise changing players by the time you get to that 8th pick, because it's not that deep of a draft, I don't think, this year. 2021, 2022, those next 2 years, I could see y'all still being in the lottery, and I could see y'all getting some nice picks then. I think y'all be in the top 3 over the next couple of years. So depending if y'all.
Hopefully next year's the last time we're talking about this, because I wouldn't mind being in the top 3 in next year's draft, because those young guys coming in definitely could be good options and would help us moving forward. But after that, I'm done. We need to start winning at some point, because I can't keep looking at these seasons as development seasons. I want to see some wins and playoff runs and maybe even making this an attractive place to come. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know the active part. I don't know how long that'll take before that happens. But speaking of young players, again, that you're looking forward to, next couple of years, you had Amani Bates balled out yesterday. Chet balled out yesterday. A lot of people didn't like how Mikey Williams played or Bronny played, but it's only the first game this season. But the future is bright coming up for this draft. There's a lot of talent coming in. So I think y'all got that to look forward to.
Yeah, we definitely are going to start scouting the young players coming up in high school for sure, because they could be on our team in a few years, but hopefully things get turned around. Hopefully we get a few more wins in the win column. We get a few more stars that want to come here. Yeah, that's all I got to say about us at this point.
Number 9, Wizards. Who do you see the Wizards taking at that ninth pick?
I think they do have scoring on this team already. They've got Hachimura. He's a good piece. Got Bradley Beal still, John Wall, but they just need like a defender. So I like Okoro, Isaac Okoro from, I just butchered his name though, but from Auburn. He stands out to me. He's got the NBA ready body. He's raw offensively, but most of these guys are coming in. But he's probably the best defender in the draft. So if you want to help this team win, which this team could win next year, bring this guy in. He can play defense, NBA defense off the bat already. He's just going to need some development on the offensive end, work on his shot and all that stuff coming up.
Yeah, I got him going to the Wizards too. I think he'd be a 3 and D guy, like a Roberson or something like that. You then take the pressure off of Hachimura. He doesn't have to defend the best, 3 or 4 guys. So I think that's a good pick for them. Number 10, the Suns. I think they go with Killian Hayes. I think if he's still available, he'll be a facilitator. If you have Ricky Rubio still, he learns from Ricky Rubio, who was one of the best facilitators, or if you have CP3, that's still a good pick for Killian Hayes to learn under and probably develop more of the offensive scoring ability, being able to be a threat and scoring aspect. But facilitating would be a perfect fit for the team that they have, even if no trades happen with Oubre and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. You don't really need another per se scorer. You need probably a floor general, maybe some extra defense. So I'll go with Killian Hayes at number 10.
I think because in my mock draft, he drops this far, but I think Vassell from Florida State would be a good option. Another shooter on this team. They might, you know, go out and get a point guard. So they're not necessarily looking at the draft for, a raw point guard to come in and lead this team because I feel like the Suns are looking to win sooner than later. So bringing some guys, college guys who work hard. And Vassell, he's a good defender. He can hit the open three, which I mean, with a Devin Booker led team, you're gonna have options and you're gonna get looks on the wing. So you need some guys who are gonna hit shots. And I think 3 and D is maybe not what teams are looking for this high, but I mean, a couple years ago they took Mikal Bridges, and he's turned out pretty good for them. So why not test your luck with Devin Vassell and see if you can hit twice? Because you're just helping to build this roster at this point. Because most of the time you don't need to, just build through the draft. You can put pieces here and there, young pieces that you develop, but the faster way is to, sign guys. So if they do go after somebody like Fred VanVleet, then you don't need a point guard. You don't even have to look at it. I wouldn't even want to look at Ricky Rubio if I could get Fred VanVleet, because honestly, he's better than him. But I think Vassell is the pick here.
Number 11, Spurs. I think they go with the athletic, versatile big Patrick Williams. Who do you see the Spurs picking up?
Same. I like Patrick Williams. He's kind of gone under the radar. He's a bigger sized college kid for his age. Even though he doesn't have the height, he's got the size. So I think, especially with Popovich still there, he's looking at this as like a sleeper pick. Like, oh, I feel like he thinks this could be a steal getting him here, because if you help develop these guys like they've done time in and time out, then you get a steal in the draft. That's where you find a Kawhi Leonard, you find a Ginobili, or you find a who else is there?
Tony
Tony
Parker.
Parker. Yeah, you find guys like that.
Even they used DeJuan Blair, an undersized big, and they was able to get good minutes out of him. I think honestly, the Spurs could draft me or you, and it would still work out well. The way that their organization is and how they develop their players, I wouldn't be surprised with this pick if they pick somebody from overseas that we have no idea about, and they might keep them over there on the shelf for like a year or two. So Spurs is always up in the air. I think Popovich probably got maybe 1 or 2 years left before he's out of there. I don't think he continues.
Probably, yeah. I agree. But while he's here, he's going to put this team in the best position going forward that he can. So I like that pick as a probably a sleeper pick that maybe years down the road we won't see until, all these guys are grown, that this was definitely the right pick.
Number 12, Kings. I think they picked Sadiq Bey, stretch four kind of for their team. I think the Kings organization in general was kind of in shambles. They need to figure out what direction they want to go in. You got a good piece, obviously, De'Aaron Fox, but I see them drafting Sadiq Bey.
I think with all the rumors surrounding Buddy Hield, if they do trade him, you got a clone in the draft in Aaron Nesmith from Vanderbilt. Like he's a good shooter, probably the best shooter in the draft. You're getting him on a rookie deal where you're not paying him as much. Like it's a steal. Like he's older. He's 21, which I mean, saying 21's older is funny just because that's not old at all. But in the NBA draft, that's ancient for them. But that just means he's seasoned. He's been in college developing. He averaged like 23 a game last year in the SEC, which, in my opinion, is the best conference in college basketball. So you got that going for him. I think this is like an easy pick. If you do trade Buddy Hield, which he seems a little unhappy over there, they don't really know what they're doing with him, then we see what they're doing. We see they're moving forward in the right way because they'll get assets for Buddy Hield. He's definitely going to have some suitors out there that are going to want to trade for him because this is a 3-point league now, and Buddy Hield's shown that he can hit threes time in and time out.
Yeah, I think, like I said, they got to figure out what they're doing over there, the Kings organization. They're pretty much a mess. Commentator getting fired this off season. Luke Walton is on the hot seat. We don't know if he's the right pick. Vlade Divac stepping down. They got too much going on in Sacramento. 13th pick, you got the Pelicans. Who do you see the Pelicans picking up with this pick?
With this pick, this is going to be a tough one because you got to see how they fit with Zion, which he's not exactly going to be stretching the floor anytime soon. But if I didn't make that pick with Nesmith, I would have put him over there in New Orleans. But since I did, I would take Sadiq Bey and put him in New Orleans. I think he's a stretch. He could play that stretch four role, probably a small forward role for them, which they'll probably have locked up for the next 5-6 years with Ingram. But you need guys who can shoot, especially around Zion, who's shown he's a good facilitator out there. And you're going to have guys on the wing who are going to be sitting there open. He's one of those guys who can shoot. Like he shot over 40% from three in college. And I mean, Villanova guys have shown a tendency to do well in the league. So I believe in like the player development over there. And that's all this is going forward for the Pelicans, is finding guys that are going to develop, that are going to mesh well with your stars who, I mean, you look at it, their only stars are Zion and Ingram. But if you hit on some of these picks, that's all you need. You don't need to have a million superstars coming out of every draft because you're not going to find superstars in every draft. But yeah, I think you go shooting here and call it a day. You could go guard here if you're thinking that they might trade Lonzo, which might not be the worst decision. He's not really that good at shooting. So if you do that, I would go with Tyrese Maxey. I don't think, looking at it, I'm not sure if he'll fall this far, but for them, that could work out. He's a combo guard who could come in and already offer them more than Lonzo's given them offensively.
I think they go with Jalen Smith, stretch big. He also performs well at the rim, so that gives space to Zion, and Zion still outside of her, the fast breaks and things of that nature. Jalen Smith is a better, I think, performer over the rim right now, and you could see him maybe matching up, putting him side to side with the pick from last year with Jackson Smith. So I go with Jalen Smith in this area. He could stretch the floor also, and he could play in the paint. So I think you go with them. Number 14 pick, the Celtics. I don't know who's getting this pick, but I think the Celtics are trading that. It's already rumored that they're thinking about trading 3 of their picks to try to get a higher pick to then trade to get Drew Holiday, or they not keeping this pick. I don't think Celtics is getting rid of this.
Yeah, I think they're gonna trade it too. But if they do take it, and if the mock draft goes as I said before, I'm gonna say Maxi from from Kentucky, honestly, because as we've seen, Kentucky players usually come out the draft and people sleep on them because you don't see the crazy numbers in college, but that's because Calipari develops them the right way, has them playing team ball and makes them willing to, do a little less to help win. And that goes a long way. And with that, sometimes you'll get a diamond in the rough. And I think Maxi could be one of those guys who's a diamond in the rough. Similar to Devin Booker, similar to Tyler Hero, you got these combo guards who come out, can score the ball, can shoot. And I think he's aggressive. The way he attacks the hole, that could add another element off the bench. And with the Celtics, they've had so many first round picks that they just could stash. And with this team, they can kind of afford to stash some of these picks and just develop them for down the road. It's a good method that Danny Ainge has because I mean Kemba's only getting older. This could be his replacement right here moving forward. And who knows? Kemba might be here next year, but the year after that, it's not a given. You might move on from him. So you'd have his replacement on the roster already. You don't have it's always about forward thinking with these things. And if you're thinking ahead, I think Maxi's the best pick here. And, don't overthink it.
Who do you see going for the last pick that we'll be touching on, the 15th pick in the Orlando Magic?
I'm going to go with a surprise pick, which, I mean, coming into the year wasn't a surprise, but he's fallen a little bit. But Cole Anthony, I could see going here because I don't know if they necessarily trust Markel Fultz as the point guard there. Like he's good. He's good. He had a decent year last year, but it doesn't hold up to what people thought he was going to do in this league at this point. Like his shot is still shaky. It is what it is at this point. He's good going to the hole. Like he's explosive, but until he figures out that jump shot, I don't know. But Cole Anthony, I think he could be that point guard that they're looking for. He struggled at UNC. I mean, his numbers weren't as good as they could have been, and that's mainly because UNC was terrible. I think I would have rather have gone to Greensboro than Raleigh last year because there wasn't much talent on that roster. So I definitely think he's going to be better in the league where there's more spacing and there's not as many people with their eyes on you, just focused on you on the court. And with this Magic team that just made the playoffs, who knows if they get a good point guard who can come in and play well. Like this is a kid who was the number one point guard in the country last year, and you're getting him at 15. Like sometimes you take a chance on guys that fall in the draft just based off of talent and knowing that, hey, they might have had a rough year in college or wherever they came from, but if we believe in our player development, then we take this guy because he has that talent. He's a lot more talented than some of these other guys that we could take, but sometimes you got to take a risk in the draft, and this is the best risk here.
I had Cole Anthony too, and I had as a option was Kara Lewis Jr. as another option if he's available at that point, because I don't have him being picked in those top 14 picks. So I would say it would be between those two. If Carol Lewis drops, if not, and he's picked before that, I say Cole Anthony is the right pick. Some later picks, that's some sleeper picks that I think are still going to have impact, whether it's later in the first round or that second round. I think players you got to watch for are Trey Jones, Cassius Winston, and Cassius Stanley. I think those three players, they're not going to be drafted in the top 15, but I think they're going to have nice impacts on the teams that they get drafted to.
I agree. There's a lot of late round picks that can really hit here, and many times you don't even need a pick. Guys go undrafted, like Fred VanVleet. He's up for a 8-figure contract, and he wasn't drafted. So it's all about developing these guys. The draft is what it is. Like you take guys on potential, but it's up to you to develop them and see if we could turn that potential into something substantial. So,
and these later picks, they might not like where they got picked, but they'll be more than likely going to playoff team. So they'll be hopefully being able to make an impact on a playoff team straight off the back. And you talking about starting off your career, hey, you didn't check that you wanted, but Cassius Winston, is saying that they're probably going to draft the Lakers. Hey, I don't mind starting off talking about I'm probably going back to the championship and I play with Bron and AD. That's not a
hey,
a start.
If I'm y'all, I'm looking at the guy from San Diego State, the Malachi Flynn kid, because he's good. He's slept on because he's older. I guess this is what happens if you stay in college too long, which I didn't know that was a thing. Now they really want you to leave early, and that makes you more likely to get drafted. But these young guys, well, older vets coming out of college, they're usually gonna go to these deeper teams at the end of the draft, which it works out. You got Caruso, who he played a big role for the Lakers last year. There's plenty of guys like that. Even Kuzma left after his junior year in college. So I don't think that people should really pay attention to how long a guy's been in college and whether or not like they've reached their ceiling. Like you take guys who are good and then worry about all that other stuff later on. You don't want to really bet on projects and hope that you can develop them and you can see what they're going to be like in the future and hope that it fits your timeline, because it's not always going to happen.
Yeah, I think you chose the wrong person. Example right there is Kuz, being a lot of people who don't.
Kuz, for all his flaws, he has like maximized his talents and potential to put him where he's at this point. But he does leave a lot to be desired. But Kuz is Kuz. He'll give you 35 one night and 5 another. You take the good with the bad.
Yeah, I think we'll be talking about that on probably our next episode or episode after that. Just talking about the myth of the earlier the better for drafting when it comes to NBA players. Like your stock for some reason goes down if you stay to your senior year. So I think that'll actually be a cool topic where we just break that down and just look at through history how, as you mentioned, players like Kuz or Caruso who stayed longer and actually played well. It's like a give and take. You stay longer, typically you're getting a player that's ready to play right now. Younger players, you're drafting, like you said, off of potential. But that's the end of this show. We'll see what happens in the draft. We have a lot coming. We have a lot in store for y'all. Shout out to all of our listeners, whether it's on our streaming platform, Spotify, Apple, whether you're watching us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you share, all that good stuff. You already know the vibes. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. Bench Mob, we out. Peace.